Hello, everyone, and welcome to MetaCast, the podcast of the Meta-Analyses Academy. I am honored today to receive a very special guest, Giovanna Pascual, who is coming from Italy to Boston and will share her experiences from growing up in Brazil, then moving to Italy for medical school, and now coming here to Boston for observerships, research opportunities, and so much more. I'm honored to have you here today, Giovanna. Thank you so much for joining. Before I pass it over to her, I just want to remind you guys, I want to give a brief explanation about the Meta-Analyses Academy. This is a program that teaches you guys how to do systematic reviews and meta-analysis to transform your careers, to learn how to publish research with autonomy, to open great opportunities in your career. We do not do publications for our students. We teach you guys how to do these incredible research. Now, Giovanna, thank you so much for joining. Could you please introduce yourself to everyone?
Thank you so much, Dr. Cardoso. It's a pleasure to be here. It's really an honor. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Giovanna. I am from Brasilia. I grew up in Brasilia, and now I'm studying medicine in English at the University of Bologna.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about how was it, let's start with this great decision in your career, or this decision in your career to go from Brazil to Italy for medical school. So can you share why that decision, why Italy, what were the factors that you considered in making this decision?
Of course. I really never thought of studying abroad before. I grew up in Brasília, and I've always thought of going to the University of Brasília, studied for it. But during the pandemic, I think a UNB was closed for two following entrance exams. And so then I was already studying for a while and starting to think, okay, I really want to move on with my studies. What can I do? At that time, my mom was living in Europe, and she really encouraged me to look for opportunities abroad. Back then, I already spoke English, and so she said, no, I'm sure there will be opportunities in English here, so let's take a look. And there are a lot of opportunities. It's really amazing how many options there are, most of them in private universities. And so I do think that one of the things that pushed me towards Italy the most is that not only they have really, really good traditional institutions, but they're also public. And so they have a lower cost, I would say, compared to the others that would be as great as, but maybe a bit more expensive.
So I didn't know this. During the pandemic, then University of Brasilia closed admissions for two consecutive periods?
For a while. And also ENEM delayed the results for almost a year. And so I really found myself with no option, just keep studying, which is, I really did do that. But I didn't know when things would be back.
Right.
And so I think that was really something that encouraged me to, okay, what else is there? And
it's a crazy time in everyone's life, of course, but it's so interesting that for some people like yourself, like it totally changed your career path, right? I mean, so I'm sure you guys know, but for those of you who are not very familiar with Brazilian geography, Brasília is the capital. It's right in the Midwest center of Brazil. I'm from nearby, actually. I'm from Goiás, and Giovanna was going to go to University of Brasilia, which is one of the very traditional medical schools there. And it didn't work out because of this barrier related to the pandemic. And then what was the process like once you've explored this option? Your mom said, hey, Giovanna, come to Europe here to do medical school. What was it like, the process of getting ready? What are admissions like? Is it different for foreign students like yourself versus European students? Can you share some insights about that process?
Definitely. My process was quite funny because it was really fast. So I started looking into it in June. I subscribed in July. I took the exam in September, and in October I was already moving country and moving my life. So it was really, really fast. But the way it works, they have an exam, IMAT. That's how it's called. Well, for the universities in English. So I need to clarify that the process is different if you want to study in Italian and if you want to study in English. To study in English, you need to take this exam, IMAT.
Italian medical admissions test? I just made that up. Maybe.
No, I actually wrote it down, but I already forgot. I think it's International Medical Admissions Test.
Okay, sounds
good. Something like that. And it's an exam with 60 multiple choice questions that need to be done in 100 minutes.
Oh, that's fast.
Yeah, it's very fast. They have all sorts of topics in the sense of general knowledge, logical reasoning. Biology is quite important, it's quite heavy in the exam. Chemistry, physics, math, and I think that's it.
So it's similar to our vestibular, for example. In
somewhat
Brazil.
similar.
In Brazil, the admissions test is called vestibular.
Yeah. I specifically really enjoyed doing IMAT because they had a correction factor that every 2 wrong questions would take out a correct one.
That's like Brasilia.
Exactly. So
The international folks won't know this, but in my time when I took vestibular to get into medical school, I hated the test from Brasilia because they applied this logic. You couldn't guess because over there it was 1 wrong took out 1 right. It
exactly.
was such a pain.
So I was used to that strategy that you have to have for those kind of exams, and the content is really not different. I just had to make that knowledge become English, which I already had in Portuguese, and then my focus was to just make sure I knew everything in English. And so that is a really easy process in the sense that you just register and then you take the exam. And it is different if you're an European citizen and if you're a non-EU.
How so?
So mostly in how to rank universities, in the sense that European students, European citizens, they get to rank all of the universities that teach in English in order of preference. And so if the first option doesn't work, the second option is available. If the second option still doesn't work, then the third, all the way down. Meanwhile, non-EU citizens have to choose the one university they want and apply for that one. And so that does make usually the grades are a bit more competitive, a bit higher, because they know that that's the shot they have.
But you apply after you know your score?
No. As you register for the exam, you already rank the universities.
The university.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is specifically for Italy. Did you explore, when your mom said, hey, come to Europe, did you explore different options besides Italy? And then why Italy?
I did explore other options. I know Germany has a few universities that teach in English, and among other countries, but most of them private, and Italy has a very, very good institution that is somewhat subsidized by the European Union, and by Italy itself. And so the costs are really affordable, and moving from Brazil and always converting money, I did think that would be a very important thing to think of.
So cost is an important factor, of course. This is common all over the world. People from Brazil go to Argentina and other places in South America. It's surprising to see that even in Europe, cost could be competitive with Brazilian costs. How do you compare the two, as at least in terms of tuition? I know cost of living can vary a lot, but in terms of tuition for medical school, is the tuition in Italy cheaper or about the same or more expensive than Brazil private schools?
A lot cheaper,
wow.
Actually. Yeah. It varies a lot from university to university. Some universities will have a set fee for each country. My one specifically, the tuition fee will vary according to the taxes, the yearly income of the year of the people that support you. So in my case, my parents.
Wow.
So I do think that even for the people that pay the full tuition fee, which at the University of Bologna is maximum 3,500 euros per year, around that.
Per year?
Per year.
Insane.
Yeah. So I do think that even for the people that pay the full tuition, that's still way cheaper than the private universities in Brazil.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you took the IMAT, you did well, and then you chose Bologna.
I chose Bologna as my first option. I do have European citizenship, and and so I was able to rank all of the 12 institutions, and I was counted into the spots for Europeans, because in Bologna back then, and I think it's still the same, we have 90 spots. 70 are reserved for European, and 20 for non-European. And
Okay.
so if you have European citizenship, you must register as European and so be counted on the 70 spots.
Gotcha.
That's what I did back then, and Bologna was my first option.
Okay, very nice. And do you think that was helpful? Meaning, was it a little bit easier because you had European citizenship, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. As I'm proud to say, I actually did very well. And so in my case, it wouldn't have made a difference. But I think it is very helpful because the list goes on a lot more. And so
I see.
people have a lot more chances. Meanwhile, in the non-EU list, if you don't get in,
You won't have a
you won't
backup
have
plan.
no
Okay.
exactly, and
Gotcha.
so that does make a difference. But I do think that coming from Brazil and having studied for vestibular, the entrance exam, for so long, we're more than prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, Brazil actually has a very good educational
Yeah.
system. So, for non-EU citizens, how does the immigration aspect work? So obviously one part is being accepted in the university. You already described that. But then let's say you are accepted in Bologna. And then how do you know how it works in terms of immigration? You get a visa?
Yeah. So the non-EU process actually starts a bit before the exam, as you have to be in contact with the embassy to get like a pre-enrollment in which they will already sort out a couple of papers for you.
Gotcha.
But once you get you get in, you've been approved. Then yes, you do a student visa that, if I'm not mistaken, has to be renewed every year.
Okay, excellent. Very good. All right. So, and then you got accepted. Can you share a little bit about what is it like to do medical school in Italy? Like, why Bologna? If there's and at the University of Bologna in Italy as a whole, what's medical school like? Is it different than, for example, what you know of in Brazil and other countries? How has it been so far?
Okay. I'll start with a fun fact that actually the University of Bologna is the oldest in the Western world.
Wow.
It dates back to 1088, if I'm not mistaken.
That's incredible. So
Yeah.
that's almost 1,000 years at this point.
Exactly. So that is really incredible to be able to study in such a historical place, to be surrounded by history, while at the same time, Bologna specifically is a very student-like city. Everything, I usually joke that everything is university. You just alternate buildings, and they're all university libraries or lesson halls and all that. So I do think that creates a great environment in the city to live in and to experience. So that's definitely something incredible of it. The way the year itself works, how medicine works in Bologna, I think it's quite similar in the other universities, but then again, I'll make sure to mention that I'm focusing on Bologna. We have 3 months of lectures in both semesters. The semester starts in October. Then we have 3 months of lessons, October, November, December. Then 2 months of exam session. Then again, 3 months of lessons and 2 months of exam session. The advantage of that is that actually in Bologna, in Italy as a whole, you can choose when you take the exams.
In that 2-month window.
In that 2 months window. And so some people would rather spread the exams out and stress a bit less. Some other people would prefer make a heavier semester, heavier on studying, so that once the exam session comes, they get done in the first opportunity. It really varies, and it's interesting so that you get to explore what your personality is like.
So in that window for testing, you don't have classes?
During the period of the exam session, you don't have classes.
Wow, that's
so you
incredible.
actually get a full day to focus on the exams.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And this happens for the first 3 years, or the whole medical school? How does it
The
work?
whole medical school.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
6 years?
6 years. It gets progressively more and more practical, more and more time in the hospital, for sure. But we do have lessons until the very end. And I would say that the last year is also focused on the thesis that we have.
Focused on what, sorry?
On the thesis,
Okay.
which is like the last graduation examination, I would say.
Okay.
That is a big part of the last year as well.
Okay. Do you have something equivalent to an internato in Brazil, or in the US they would call that sub-intern? where you're like really hands-on acting as a doctor with supervision?
Yeah, no, not really. It's a really lesson-based course, very theoretical, and we do spend a lot of time in the hospital, but a lot more supervised, I would say, than what I know from Brazil. And I know that the last 2 years in Brazil are really hospital-based. We do a bit of both, I would say.
Perfect. So we've been talking a lot about the University of Bologna, where Giovanna studies, and I want to take this opportunity to emphasize that the Meta-Analysis Academy and MetaCast and what we're discussing here is not affiliated with the institutions where Giovanna studies and where I work. So I didn't introduce myself in the beginning. A lot of you guys know me. My name is Randerson Cardozo. I'm a cardiologist here in Boston, and this program is not affiliated with the institutions where I currently work as well. Giovanna, so amazing. What year are you right now in Bologna?
I just finished the fourth, about to
Fourth.
begin the fifth.
Perfect. So almost done. Fifth and sixth year ahead. Let's talk about your international experiences, because it wasn't just going to Italy. I know you're much like a citizen of the world at this point. So talk
Yes.
about your time, your first international experience. I think it was in England, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, then Greece, now Boston. Let's talk about that. What was your first experience internationally?
So I've always learned English in school, and I've also done private English school. And so I knew vocabulary, I knew grammar, but really what gave me fluency and confidence in the language was the student exchange I did to Bournemouth in England.
I thought I saw a British accent.
A tiny bit. Really, it changed my life. I don't think back then I knew how much it would actually change my life. But now looking back, I know that really without that, I don't think I would be here now. So really changed my life, and it gave me the fluency and the confidence that allowed me to pursue a medical career in English and to be here today.
How long did you spend?
I spent 3 weeks in a school, in an English school in Bournemouth. We'd go to this school and English every day. It was really, really fun.
Life-changing experience, huh? A lot of our students internationally from Brazil I have a huge audience there, ask me how to learn English, and this is a really a prime way of doing it. If you're in early days of medical school and you still have time to do this, consider doing an exchange visitor program, even working for the summer. I went to Alaska once, believe it or not, and then it was just in the summer in June, and then I saw a student from Brazil spending her summer there.
Really?
Just like us working at a restaurant. So
Wow.
she could finance her international trip, so she could pay for it and learn English. So it's an amazing way of doing it. I myself spent 1 year in the United States as when I was 10, 11 years old, and that was really transformative in my career. So if you're able to, whether it's doing a formal program like an exchange visitor program, or just doing an observership, like if you're more advanced into your 4th, 5th year medical school, consider doing an observership, spend 1 month at a hospital internationally, Australia, England, UK, United States. You will really see your English being transformed. So you had that experience, went back to Brazil. You obviously knew how to speak English very well. Then Italy, and then what about Greece? When did you go to Greece?
So one great thing about the University of Bologna is that it has so many agreements, and it has such a good relationship with so many universities around the world. And so at some point in university, I decided I wanted to explore the world and fully get experiences before I decide where would I want to go next. And in Italy, they also have the IFMSA, which I think Brazilian students will have heard of. In Italy, it's called SISM, and you can gather points throughout university, and so apply and rank among the other students, and then get to choose among a set list of countries where you want to go.
Nice.
Usually, you apply for that 4th, 5th, and 6th years. But my parents really always told me, like, you have nothing to lose in trying. So I did try to apply in the 3rd year. And I actually got in.
Nice.
And I managed to choose from 5 countries. And once I heard Greece, I knew, like, that's it. And so I went to Greece for a month. I spent a month in the neurology department of the University of Ioannina. Had the greatest time, really loved neurology, loved Greece. I really, really liked medicine there. I thought it was very kind, very patient. based medicine, and so I really enjoyed the month. And I got to spend the summer in Greece, which wasn't bad as well.
Not a bad side effect.
No, not at all.
That's good.
So yeah, that was my first experience abroad from Italy.
Nice, very good. And then, how's your Italian? The medical school is in English, but did you learn Italian? Did you already know Italian before moving to Italy?
So I did not know Italian. I had never spoken Italian. The only Italian I have been in contact with before was I did visit Italy, and my grandma, she loves watching Italian programs. So I was used to like listening to a bit of it, but definitely not near speaking. So yes, you do need Italian. The course is in English from start to finish, but the hospital experience is in Italian. And
Okay.
so from the second year onwards, you do need a B1 level minimum. I do think that over the years you end up getting a higher level, but you need Italian for the hospital. And I would say that for daily life, Italian also comes in
Right.
handy.
For sure. Do they use that into admissions at all? The test is in English, but did they do an interview or anything of that nature?
No, the admission is fully based on IMAT, so it doesn't really make a difference if
So
you have anything before.
It gives you time to be accepted and then figure out the
Yeah,
Italian.
exactly,
Great.
exactly. And the university offers Italian language courses, and so
How did you learn?
exactly like that. I did a course within the university, and also just trying like in the daily life. There's always a lot of bureaucracy to be fixed and done,
Right.
and that helps a lot.
Right.
Believe it or not, that helps a lot. And
Just
so
have no choice. You have to do it.
exactly, just have to do it. And I think that's a bit how I learned it. But also the courses that the university offers, they really help a lot.
Nice. Speaking of international experiences, you're here in Boston, and this is your second time here for observerships or rotations in the United States. And a lot of our audience, whether they're in Brazil, Europe, India, Pakistan, they're interested in coming to the United States, first for an observership, later on for residency. Can you share how you got these opportunities here in Boston, first time and then now the second round?
Yes, of course, of course. So with the same logic as when I went to Greece, I really wanted to experience a bit more of the world and really be able to take a thought decision, well-informed decision on where I wanted to do residency. And so I looked up hospitals and doctors, and I know that Boston has really world-renowned institutions. And so I emailed a couple of doctors with introducing myself, explaining how am I interested in their academic and clinical work, how could I contribute to them somehow, how could that experience contribute to my career. And so I put all of that together into a motivation letter. I put up my CV and got a recommendation letter, and just tried my luck with the doctors that I was really interested in and the ones that I was inspired by their research and their topics. And it worked. It worked. I know it works for so many people, and sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes less. I do think that coming here the second time was in a way easier, in the sense that my references were now the doctors that I had the experience with last year. And so that really opens, I feel like once you have one experience, then the world is really open for you, because then you know people and people know you, and so they trust you.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful.
And then there was a scholarship the first time?
Yeah, the first time I came, I was able to come with a scholarship. That's another great thing of the University of Bologna. They have a lot of funding, and they're able to fund some experiences abroad, both like internships, observerships, clerkships, and also a part of the thesis abroad. And so that's what I did. I applied for the observership as an experience abroad, and I was able to get it, and
That's
it was
amazing.
incredible. It covered most of my costs. It covered visa, it covered accommodation, it covered flight tickets.
Wow.
And so the only thing I had to do was pay for food and for the month, which in a way I would already do that
Right.
in Italy. So
I think the conclusion we're going to get at the end of all of this is that University of Bologna is the place to go for one med school.
It's incredible. And that is something you do individually, right? So this is not really a set agreement that they have with any university, but they also have set agreements with universities. For example, they have a set agreement with the Brown University. They have agreements with universities in Japan. So you really get a lot of funded experiences.
Wow, superb. And you're rotating in neurology, and
Yeah.
can you share where and what's it been like to do these rotations here? What exactly has been your role? What's it like?
Yeah. So the first time, both times have been in neurology. The first time, aside from an observership, I was also a research trainee. And it was really nice because it was my first contact, I think, with primary research. And so really reviewing patient charts, collecting relevant and pertinent data. That was really nice experience. And now it's only an observership, also neurology at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. And I love it. I really love that both experiences have been challenging, but in different ways. Now, it definitely helps that I know so many people and I know how the dynamic works. But as I have progressed in medical school, I also know more in terms of neurology, and I'm able to take more initiative and be more involved in the thought process and diagnosing. And so it's been incredible to be part of that process. And I love it. I really love it.
Yeah. Why neurology? Why do you like neurology?
So it started as a simple interest. I really liked neuroanatomy, and I liked everything in general. So I didn't know really where to start trying. And when I went to Greece, I could apply for 4 specialties, so 4 departments, and one of them would accept me. Turned out it was neurology. And so I loved the experience. I loved that month in neurology. And I think it kind of chose me instead of me choosing it. After that month, I knew it was it.
Nice. Very good. And so you've enjoyed your time here in Boston. You like the city as well?
I love Boston. I really feel at home in Boston. I love how...
We only let people come in the show if they like Boston. Every time I ask this question, because we're recording from Boston, and then if they don't like it, we'll let them. I'm just joking. Go ahead.
Of course. No, I love it. It's really incredible, and I love that it has everything I like that is different from Europe, but at the same time, it has what I like about Europe. So I really think you get to have everything here. It's a very multicultural city, and it's a beautiful city. You get like the modern buildings, but you get nature. You get everything, really. I feel like there's never enough time to do everything.
Yeah.
There's so much to do.
Yeah, no, Boston is a fantastic city. As we've talked about on the show before, the problem here is really cost of living compared with other cities, but it's an amazing city. Lots of parks, and public transportation works relatively well, and it's got the historic part, but also very modern. Obviously, education is spectacular. So these rotations, are they 1 month rotations both times?
No, last year was 6 weeks. This year, 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
So a bit more than a month.
And that's obviously enough time, you think, to leave a good impression for people to like you, for you to really be understand and feel comfortable in helping out in the rotation?
I think so. One of the things I like the most about here is the teaching culture they have in the hospital. And I think they always want to teach you. So if you want to learn, there you have it. Then you can really make a great impression by showing how much you want to learn, how much you're paying attention, and then you're going home and studying what you've seen. So I think it is more than enough. And it definitely helps how incredible they are here. So you can't not be interested. It's just incredible. I love it.
And now that you're doing this observership, what's your role as an observer? Like, how do you contribute, and what's been the activities that you do as an observer?
Yeah, so it varies a lot, and it will depend on the attending and the residents you're with that week, and how well they know you, how much they trust you. In theory, observers really are meant to mostly just observe and shadow doctors in their service. But as doctors know you, as they feel more comfortable and confident in letting you take more initiative and more responsibility, then you can take part into the examination, you can take part into the thinking and describing the patient. And so what are the past medical history, what is the present medical history, what's relevant, how how is the physical examination and how that does that make you think something or not. And so really be part of that process is something that can be done and is super doable depending on how can you show yourself, how people trust you.
Right.
All of
And
that.
what Giovanna just described is exactly what you guys are supposed to be doing as observers. Like within the rules of the observership, of course, participate in patient care, meaning you can be present when a history is taken. You can present the case in rounds. You can help to formulate a plan. You can really be a part of the team, even in that role as an observer. And that ultimately will help you potentially get letters of recommendations if you decide to apply for residency in the United States, for example. So don't be shy as an observer. Obviously, you have to follow the rules of the observership, but then also be part of the team. Ask questions, participate in rounds. Present cases if, like Giovanna said, if they give you this opportunity because you start to do well. Present cases, formulate plans, discuss the plan of action with the residents, with the attendee, and so forth, and try to be involved and engaged as much as you can.
Exactly.
Very good. Giovanna, so you're going back to Italy in a little bit. You have 2 more years of medical school. What's the plan after that? Now that you've had so many opportunities coming from Brazil, medical school in a great university in Italy, then experiences worldwide, what comes next in your career?
Okay, so I do think these experiences they help me decide that I do want to do residency here. I absolutely love the teaching culture. It really inspires me, and I would love to be part of that education. And so I would say that the plan is to keep building, keep enriching my CV, keep building connections, experiences, and research. Especially, I do think that really sets everyone apart, sets all the students from the Meta-Analyses Academy apart, to be able to then apply here in the future and be able to study in this amazing institution.
Giovanna, by the way, guys, is a teaching assistant in the Meta-Analyses Academy.
Yes.
She told me right before we started recording that she's working on 6 right now, 6 meta-analyses right now. So soon we'll have a lot of publications from Giovanna Pascual, which will surely help in doing residency in the United States. Giovanna, what's the culture like for students from Italy who graduate? Do they migrate a lot within Europe? Do they come to the United States? What's the destiny of individuals who finish med school in Italy?
Yeah, I would say they definitely, most often they stay in Europe. I think top destinations usually include Germany, Switzerland, Austria. I know a lot of my colleagues are interested in Denmark, Finland, and so a lot of them stay in Italy, but a lot of them get out of Italy but stay in Europe. I would say that at least in the University of Bologna, coming to do residency in the US is still not that common.
Okay, is that right? And is it what's it like to get into residency in Italy for those who decide to stay? Is there one admission test?
Yeah.
How does it work?
There is an admission test, and also your grades throughout university also count a lot. And so if that's a part of your decision, then you need to think from the beginning of the university and make sure you're building your grades towards a good application, as that is a great part of the application. But then also the exam is super important.
And speaking of exams, exams in Italy have a particular aspect to it that they're oral exams. Is that right?
Yeah. They're
All of them?
the great majority.
Really?
The great majority.
One-on-one?
Yeah.
Wow.
One-on-one with everyone else watching.
Wow.
So
No pressure.
no, nothing at all. It's
Wow.
it's quite challenging, but I'm proud to say I think I developed a good method of study that really helps me feel more confident and less nervous, and so it works now. But in the beginning, oh my God, it was a disaster.
Wow.
But I'm happy to say I've overcome it.
Nice. Very good. And what are the opportunities for going to do residency in other countries within the EU? So like if a Italian med student wants to go to Germany or Spain, like do they have any advantages, any favor, or is it a unified system? Each country has their own. How does it work?
So another great thing of the University of Bologna is that you graduate with a diploma that is valid throughout Europe.
That's not true for every medical school?
No, every medical school.
Like,
so
right, every
if
medical
you
school in
if
Italy
you graduate
will-
in Italy, yes,
Right.
you're also if you graduate in Germany.
You don't have to take a test in Germany to become a doctor. You're already a doctor in Germany
Yeah.
by having graduated in Italy.
Yes, but of course, if language is different,
Right.
so different from Italian or different from English, then you do have to go through the language process,
Okay.
but not like validating the diploma.
Right.
So yes, definitely, if you're thinking of going to Germany, then you need to go through all of the process of the German exams, which are more directed towards the medical language, right?
Right.
And so yeah.
Okay, very good. And then, but you have the diploma from Italy that is valid in Germany. You have to go through this language evaluation, perhaps. But then, actually being admitted for residency may be different for each country, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a different process. And usually, for example, Switzerland, Germany, Austria as well, I know is more of an interview process rather than you don't have to take any exam.
Wow.
You just apply for a job. They consider residency just a job you're applying for. And so once you've done all of the language evaluation, then you apply for the hospital you would like, and then you get an interview.
And do you know if specialties are valid between different countries in the EU? Like if you are a pediatrician in Italy, can you pick up your bags and go to Germany, work as a pediatrician?
That's a great question. I think the language evaluation would
Right.
still
Right. But
be
residency, they
necessary.
probably consider it, maybe?
I would say so, but I'm not 100%
Yeah.
sure. But I
Okay.
would say so.
It's just interesting where
Yeah.
in the Americas, everywhere you go, it's just a totally different system. You know, if you did med school in Argentina, you have to take a test in Brazil to become a doctor in Brazil. If you
Yeah.
do medicine in Brazil, you have to take a test in the United States, you know. So it's just a little bit different where all these different countries share at least some commonalities. Giovanna, what are you going to miss most about Europe? You said that you like Boston because it has some of these features of Europe that you like. You know, when you're done there and you come to the United States for neurology residency, what are you going to miss the most about Europe?
I think the lifestyle is really nice. It's really a chilled, laid back lifestyle. You walk a lot. It's really like nature focused. You are always walking places. Food is always like locally produced. So everything I feel like is really local, really like within the neighborhood, which I really like. But I do think I'm very happy to know that everything really is just a short flight back from Boston to Europe, which I think is another great thing of Boston. It has a really, really privileged position within the world. And so in 7 to 8 hours, I'm back in Zurich, for example. And so I'm really happy and relieved that everything that I miss will be somewhat close.
Yeah, that is true. And Boston also has this European vibe, like you said, like this a big city, but everything feels small. Like if you live in Cambridge, it looks like a small city, even though you're in the middle of a huge city. So it's got a little bit of that. What's the cost of living like in Italy compared with Brazil or the United States, rent and food and these other things?
So I do think that Bologna specifically is quite expensive. It's a really, really tiny city, really, really tiny. And so there are way too many students, way more students than there are apartments. And so cost of living is quite expensive when you compare to the rest of Italy and when you compare to Europe.
Wow.
But I would still say with regards to Brasilia, it's somewhat cheaper, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a lot cheaper than the US too, of course.
Yeah. Food-wise, going to the supermarket and eating at restaurants, I don't find it too different.
Okay.
But the cost of living when it comes to accommodation and rent,
Rent is out of control here in Boston. So a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment close to the major hospitals here, like Brigham, Massachusetts General, will be around $2,500 to $3,000 per month, $2,000.
Wow.
which is a lot of money.
That is.
In Italy, I suppose people wouldn't pay that much.
No, I would say they say for a monolocale, for example, for an apartment with just one room, you can find something in the center for €1,000.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah.
And that's close to the hospital or close to the university?
Yeah, Bologna is really small, so I feel like everything is really close to everything. But yes, it's yeah, you can get a very good location. I'm fortunate enough to live right in the center, and so 15 minutes walking, I'm in the hospital, which is also where I have lessons, and so it's great.
It's incredible that you have this world-class institution, the oldest medical school in the world, and it's like in a city like that. You know, that's
it's so
like,
cool. Yeah.
You're gonna miss Bologna when you're done.
I will. I find it amazing that, like, if I'm bored in the house, I literally just go for a walk, and I'm going to see medieval buildings and so much history, and there's always something to do and to learn. It's really great. It's really great.
And then a personal question: how do you deal with studying for school and like doing all the research that you're doing now? I know you're a tutor in the Meta-Analysis Academy. Obviously, there's personal issues, your personal obligations, and you're doing all this research. Like, how do you manage all of these activities or responsibilities?
It's hard, not gonna lie. It's hard. It takes a lot of discipline, but I do like to wake up early, and I feel like that helps me make the most of the time I have, and just really have a list. I'm that kind of girl that has like a schedule, a to-do list, and so I make sure I organize everything, not to forget anything, because there's so many things to do, and everything is important. I find it hard to prioritize one over the other, because really everything is important. The university, the research projects, the tutoring, everything. My personal life, I make sure that I always go to the gym. I cook my own meals so that I can eat healthy. I can eat what I like in terms of I cook my Brazilian food everywhere.
That's incredible.
I talk to my family. I go out with my boyfriend, my friends. And so I really try to make sure that's also done so that the rest can follow as planned. And so waking up early and doing my list and making sure I do everything and I take everything after it's done really helps out. But overall discipline and motivation, inspiration, but discipline.
Yeah.
That's what keeps you
That's
going.
great. You know, you mentioned you like to cook. I even got a cake as a gift. I'm really excited about my cake that you brought for me. Thank
bolo
you.
de fubá.
Very nice. Very good. Do you get to visit Brazil, family in Brazil and Switzerland a lot or not?
I'm very, very lucky and privileged that I have my mom so close to me. I know a lot of my Brazilian friends don't have their parents as close, and it's really hard not to see your family so often. So I'm really lucky to see my mom, I would say, every 2 months, sometimes every month even. But my family in Brazil, my dad, yes, I only get to see them every 10 months, every year or so. So it is hard. I do find that keeping myself busy really helps. There's always something to do in Bologna, to study, to work, and so that really helps keeping my mind busy. But another great thing is just it's so easy to travel in Bologna. It's such a great location for trains, planes, buses, and so I do find that traveling and also trying to, get to know Europe and enjoy the time that I'm there really helps to keep the mind distracted and deal with all the saudade.
If like I said, if this podcast really takes off, people are gonna want to go move.
Yeah.
It sounds like such a
By the way, the registrations for IMAT will open now September 2nd. I just looked it up. And so that's great, actually. The exam, I think, will be mid-September or more towards the end of September. So registrations open September 2nd. So
look at that,
if you're
guys.
interested.
For sure. Let's all go to Bologna. Sounds like a great place.
You definitely should come and visit.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to. I'm going to Europe for the first time, tomorrow actually right after we're recording this podcast. I'm going to the European Society of Cardiology there. So, Giovanna, you mentioned that you want to come to the U.S. because of just how teaching is just everywhere over here on rounds. People really take the time to educate. And I know that you also develop a very important role in the Meta-Analysis Academy. You've helped us so much to build our community, to teach students. How do you see that in your career? Do you want to stay in academic medicine, become an educator? Do you see education as an important part of your career path?
I do. I do. I find that within my own learning process, I really only learn, like, I will never forget something I've learned if I taught that to someone. And so joining that with how inspired and thankful I am for everyone that's taught me here and in Bologna, I would really like to pay it forward and get involved in education as I move on in my career.
And this is going to be important when you apply, and all the people who are listening in the United States, because of what Giovanna said, because these academic institutions, there is a huge culture of education. So if you have education experiences in your CV, like if you've been a tutor in medical school, if you've participated in a project like Giovanna as a tutor in the Meta-Analyses Academy, if you've done these teaching experiences a lot, if your letters of recommendation mention it, like my own letters of recommendations for fellowship had a lot discussing my role as an educator during my time in residency. This will really help you guys in your application. I'm sure it'll help you as well, Giovanna.
Definitely.
So have you started preparing for the USMLEs?
Yeah, I'm currently studying for step one. It's part of the challenging of studying for step one, keeping up the university life, the experiences abroad, the research. So it's definitely challenging, but I find it also very helpful with everything else. It's a very useful studying for step one. It's the content that we see there really is the content that I do find it here in the clinical practice, in the daily practice of medicine. So yeah. I'm happy to be doing that.
It's a fun time. And you guys, everyone will think that it's harder individually for you than it is for everyone else because you've got internship, because you've got residency, or because of this and that. But truth is, it's busy for all of us. I work as a full-time cardiologist, and I do the Meta-Analyses Academy on my time off. Giovanna is studying for step one, doing an observership, has exams in school, and all of these things, research. She's a teaching assistant in the Meta Academy. So life is just really busy. I just don't know how you still have time to prepare your own meals and I just said. Discipline, I guess.
Yeah. And really, that's what gets me going. That's what allows me to have a full day. I wouldn't be able to have a full day of work if I didn't eat my rice and beans.
Very good.
I love that.
Well, Giovanna, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. I know I want to also take the opportunity to thank you for all the great work you've done as a teaching assistant in the Meta-Analyses Academy. And I'm looking forward to the next steps in your career. Really grateful. One final word of advice for you, to all the people listening who are inspired by your career. Maybe they want to go to Italy. Maybe want to get observerships international like you. Maybe they want to do neurology. Come to Boston. All the people that are inspired by your amazing story. Can you just give some words of wisdom? Some final words?
I can. I find that usually we grow up in a place and we focus ourselves so much in that place, but really the world is ours, the world is there, and just try it. Trying gets you there. And so I think that's my main take of my past and current experiences, is that the world is enormous and you can try and have as many experiences as possible. Not only to enrich your professional career, but really your personal life and your personal experiences and how many cultures you've met, how many people you've met, and just, I think that's
true.
The main thing.
And you mentioned something so important, which is not to be restricted by your local opportunities. And I would go one step further by saying that the environment shapes so much of who we are, of the opportunities we have in our career. But really, with the current world where we live in today, you don't have to be restricted to geography for your environment. Your environment could be interacting with great people like Giovanna. It could be in an international community. It could be participating in a program like the Meta-Analyses Academy.
Exactly.
You have opportunities to go well beyond your current geography. And in fact, that's one of the most powerful things of the Meta-Analyses Academy, in addition to just teaching students how to do publications, systematic reviews, meta-analysis, is opening their eyes to massive opportunities that are available to people from Brazil and other places around the world. The other day I spoke with a student from Redenção in Pará, a small town in the very northern part of Brazil. And, she's now publishing with people from São Paulo and other
Yeah.
places, because these are opportunities that you start seeing, and sometimes they weren't available to you before.
Yeah, specifically about that, about the meta-analyses academy, it's incredible. So last year, usually we have around like 50 students, and they were from so many different places and at so different points of medicine of their career. So it's really such a great exchange that you have, not only in terms of location or really opening up the world, but also getting different perspectives on the different points, the different stages of their career, and how those stages are different in the countries that they're from.
Absolutely. I had actually did a live stream earlier today with Sarah from Pakistan, and she's wants to do ophthalmology in the U.S., but she's working with an ophthalmologist from Iowa in the United States,
Wow.
ophthalmologist from São Paulo. So
That's really nice.
don't be restricted to the local geography that you guys are in. So to wrap up, I want to thank Giovanna once again for participating, and I want to invite you guys to watch other episodes of MetaCast. If you speak Portuguese, we have episodes in Portuguese. We have multiple episodes in English. Over here in MetaCast, we share successful stories of people that in their phases of training have done extraordinarily well. Like Giovanna, who came from Brazil, went to medical school in Italy, has traveled the world in observerships and electives, and is now has her eyes set on the next step in her career, which is going to be residency in neurology in the United States. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow us on Instagram as well. And of course, if you want to learn how to publish strong papers with autonomy to advance your career, join the next edition of the Meta-Analyses Academy. We have a wait list, or registrations may be open depending on when you're listening to this. So make sure to tune in and participate in the next edition of the Meta Academy. Giovanna, thank you so much. It was great to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. Cardozo. It was amazing. Thank you for the opportunity.
See you guys later. Bye-bye.